Hello, my friends, and welcome to a lesson all about aquaponics. It's pretty cool, and we have that really cool aquaponics system in our class. It's been going for about a year now, and it's thriving. Well, I also have one here at home that's doing pretty well, and I can't wait to show it to you. I can also show you how you might even be able to turn your fish tank at home into a thriving aquaponics system without much of a hassle or much work. But let's talk about aquaponics and how it works first. And I think we'll start with the word aquaponics. It's actually coming from two words, aqua and ponics, which are really coming from other words, aquaculture and hydroponics. Now you may notice that in this word we've got the word aqua, and in this word we've got the word hydro, and both of those words mean water, but we're using water in two different ways in these two words, and in one way in our other word. So let's talk about aquaculture. Aqua means water. Culture means to grow or sustain some kind of life. In most of the cases, aquaculture is raising fish, but it could be shrimp too. Let's talk about this one, hydroponics, something with water, but also with growing plants. This is growing plants with water, and when we put the two of them together, we get aquaponics. Growing fish and plants with water. Now, fish really need that water. Plants also need it too, and there's something that happens in an aquaponics system that fulfills everyone's needs. To talk about that, let's take a look at this diagram. Why don't we first look at the things in the tank which are non-living? To have a successful aquaponics system, you must have a fish tank. You may also need an aerator. It sort of depends, but oxygen is super important to those fish. So you need something to put some bubbles in the water. Or you might even have a nice trickle from your return that is putting that in the water. You need a pump to intake the water and send it up to a grow bed. And inside that fish tank, you'll have some substrate at the bottom, some kind of gravel, but you'll also have some of that in your grow bed as well, some kind of medium for the plants to grow in. You'll also have a drain or some kind of return from your grow bed to send the water back to the fish tank. Let's talk about the living things that are in that tank as well. Of course, you've got the fish, you've got the plants, but there are some other things you may not be able to see. Well, at some point you'll see them, but at first there's bacteria, and there's actually several kinds of bacteria living in there, and they're very important to what's happening in an aquaponics tank. So, what is happening in there? I mean, we're growing plants, we're growing fish, but most of the time when you have a fish tank, you have a filter on it, right? But you also may not have an aquaponics tank. The aquaponics actually provides a natural filter. In fact, even a regular fish tank will have some kind of what we call a biofilter. It's where the bacteria come in. You see, we have to have some way to clean that water. The fish are going to poop. They're going to make waste. And that waste is full of a chemical compound known as ammonia. And it's super toxic. If too much of it builds up in the water, the fish will get very sick and may not make it. But thankfully, there are some naturally occurring bacteria in the substrate that will convert that ammonia to something else called nitrites. Although those nitrites are very toxic as well, and everything can get sick and die from those, however, there's another family of bacteria in that substrate that takes the nitrites and turns them into nitrates. Most fish can, deal with some nitrates, but eventually if those build up in the water, it can become a problem. Obviously, too much of anything can be a problem. So that's where the hydroponic component of aquaponics comes in. You see, plants really like nitrates. You might even say they crave them. Helps give them sort of almost like a fertilizer that helps them grow even more successfully. It's pretty fantastic. So those plants will clean those nitrates right out of the water before it returns to the fish, nice and clean. And when you see my system in a bit, you'll notice that it's pretty nice and clean, and I'll tell you right now, I haven't changed the water, nor have I cleaned that tank since I started it in November, and it is now almost mid-April, and everything is doing fine. Well, we've looked at this diagram, and it's pretty cool. Why don't we go look at the real thing? Come on, let's go. Here is my home aquaponics system, and right now we're sort of just drifting and following those fish in the fish tank section, and I'll take you up. There's the pump. We'll come right up, 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 and you can sort of see some of the bacteria and waste, and here is the grow bed. It's some nice little radish sprouts. These are about a week old, maybe a little bit less. Pretty cool, huh? And you can see that water dispersing out, and then if we go right to the bottom, you can see where the water is returning. The water level's just almost up to there, so it's hard to see, but then there's that aerator, and then if you notice, those water streams coming in are actually helping to stir up that oxygen. And that little fish looks like it's having a nice time in there. Cool. Well, let's see if we can apply all those words we just went over to this aquaponics system. All right, friends, let's start our labeling, and let's start with all the non-living things in our system. Do you remember what the main component would be? I mean, we're looking right at it, right? We need a fish tank, and we've got one, don't we? We also might even need an aerator, and that's sitting right in the back there, and let's see if I can get that label right. Oh, look at that. There's that aerator back there. Now there's something else that we need as well as that pump, that bit of intake. Oh, gonna have to stretch all the way to the back to get that right there. Fantastic, almost looks like it's in the tank. Now on the bottom we've got this gravel, a substrate, something that those bacteria can live in. And then of course the pump is sending the water all the way up to the grow bed. How cool, right? And in the grow bed, there's also substrate. We've got lava rock in this one for the plants to grow in. And then there's this one other part, and that would be the drainer return, and it's in the back there. Pretty cool. Well, we've got all of our non-living things labeled. Oh, you know, there actually is a couple more pieces to this puzzle. We actually have a light up here. It's a nice LED grow light. Notice it's purple. It has the most perfect wavelengths of light that plants need. Usually turn it on at night. These things get just a little bit of sun in the day, but it helps them grow. And what you might notice is that this blocks the light from getting into the tank. There is a bit of light from the windows getting into the tank, but if too much light got into the tank, algae would start to grow and it would be all green and sort of gross in there. Well, let's talk about our living things. And oh, there's a couple of our living friends right there. We've got the fish. They're very important. Remember, they produce that waste. And all their waste falls to the bottom, where it is consumed by bacteria living in that substrate. And actually, bacteria are present in the tube from the pump, and the bacteria are also present in the substrate in the grow bed. There's bacteria everywhere, and let us not forget that we've got these beautiful plants up here. Fantastic. So we've got the non-living and we've got the living, but what about those chemicals? Where are those really taking place? Well, all over. The water is obviously not going to be too much different in the tank to the grow bed, but we can say that the ammonia is being produced in the fish tank by the fish and coming down to the substrate where it settles and is changed by these bacteria into nitrites, and potentially the nitrates as well, but you might even see more heavy nitrate production as we get towards the grow bed. Let's stick the nitrates right there where the plants use them, and then, well, the water just comes back nice and clean. Now, I also have something else to show you here, and it's in this box, and I've never really needed it at all. As I told you, I've never had to clean this tank or change out the water. So this is the filter that came with this fish tank. Look at the size of that thing. Huge, right? Big power cord on there. And then if you look at the top there, there's a filter in there a filter that actually filters the water. So the water has to pass through a diaphragm so they can remove the bacteria and the algae and the nitrates and the nitrites and all of that stuff. But yeah, you're saying why? Why do that? Why not use a biofilter and grow some delicious plants? And you know, when these radishes are done, I think they're going to be quite delicious. And I know Nora's got her eye on that one back there. Well, how do you turn your fish tank into an aquaponics system? It's quite easy. If you've got the fish tank and fish, and it's been going for a little while, you've done what we've called cycling. You've cycled your fish tank, and it's got all of those things that it needs in there, the bacteria, the fish, all those little chemical components. Really, all you gotta do is take that out and put this in. Having a grow bed with some kind of substrate in it and plants. Now, obviously, if you have never done this before, keep a check on the levels of your tank. Check the ammonia, check the nitrates, check the nitrites. Make sure they're all good, because going straight from a regular fish tank to an aquaponics tank might cause some shock and might take a second to settle everything. So keep a good eye on it. But once you get started, you can have a lot of fun growing plants, growing fish, and there's even large-scale models of this where you raise something like tilapia. You can eat those. Pretty good. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed this lesson in aquaponics, and I hope you are able to draw a nice diagram, or maybe even draw your dream aquaponics system, and maybe even check out what some industrial aquaponics setups look like. But either way, have fun.